here too.
Okay.
Take care of him.
All right, sure.
Awesome.
All right. Is that Mr. Anderson at the jail?
No, I think it's my client.
This
Is that Mr. Gordon? Michael
Yes.
Gordon? Okay. Mr. Gordon, I'm Judge Sara Smolenski. I have you at the 63rd District Court with your attorney, Val Foster. She's out here with me. We've got you at the Kent County Correctional Facility, originally charged with this 5-year felony called embezzlement, over 1,000 under 20. Ms. Foster, your attorney had worked out an agreement with the prosecutor that if you pled to embezzlement over 200 under 1,000, with an agreement to pay full restitution and give full and truthful testimony against the co-defendant, they dropped the 5-year felony. Was that your understanding, Ms. Foster?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Gordon, did you understand what the discussion has been so far about going forward with a misdemeanor?
Yes, ma'am.
The decision that you make, Mr. Foster, it has to be your decision. I said Mr. Foster, I meant Mr. Gordon. I'm sorry. It has to be your decision, Mr. Gordon, not anybody else. And you should only plead guilty if you're involved, if you did it. You have the right to have a trial where you can bring in witnesses, cross-examine witnesses, take the stand yourself, be a witness if you wanted to. If you chose not to, your silence cannot be held against you. You have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, if you go forward on that embezzlement misdemeanor, it's up to 1 year in jail, it's up to $2,000 fine, or 3 times the value of the property stolen, whichever's greater. Not stolen, but embezzled. Any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
Are you on probation or parole right now, Mr. Gordon?
No.
Do you have cases in any other courts?
Yes.
He does, Your Honor.
Ms. Foster's telling me you do have some business in another court. This would just handle this case. Do you understand that?
Yes.
If there was something you wanted to appeal, you'd be given 21 days, 3 weeks, to appeal to the higher court. Do you feel like you understand that, Mr. Gordon?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that if I go back in time to April 28 this year at the Target store, Mr. Gordon, the one in Cascade Township on 28th Street, as to the charge of embezzlement over $200 under 1,000, the misdemeanor 1-year charge, how do you want to plead?
Guilty.
Are you pleading guilty by your own decision?
Yes, ma'am.
Has anybody forced or threatened you in any way to plead to it, Mr. Gordon?
No, ma'am.
What happened? Why are you guilty? What happened at that Target? April 28.
April 28, I
Speak up just a little bit louder.
April 28, I had went to Target during work and I had took some money out of there.
Were you in working with another person that worked there, or did you work at Target?
I worked with another person there, but at the day of, I think I was there by myself.
Okay. Were you employed by Target in that time period?
Yes.
What was your job at Target?
It was to service people's phones, turn people's phones on, and cell phones.
Okay. And during that incident, did you take property that was owned by Target
Yes, ma'am.
without paying for it?
Yes, ma'am.
It wasn't directly money, it was more like product, correct?
Right.
Okay. And was the product the phones?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know how many you would have taken?
I took 2 of them.
And the value of those phones is about $500 apiece?
Yes. I recall, yes.
In that ballpark?
Excuse me, ma'am, what did you say?
I said in that ballpark, they were about $500 apiece, about that?
Yes.
And you had no authority to take those without Target's approval. True enough?
Right.
And it was your role as the worker in that electronic department at Target that gave you the opportunity to take those when you worked for Target, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Foster, I'll ask you whether you believe the court has complied with the court rule in terms of the taking of the plea.
The court has, Your Honor.
All right. And I wanted to inquire, is your client going to be in custody on something else for a bit?
He is. He's got a stolen motor vehicle case, a UDAA case, that was just bound over last week.
So he's not been able to make the bond on that?
No. So,
Mr. Gordon, your attorney, Ms. Foster, is telling me that you're in custody now on another case, unlawful driving away of an automobile, and that you just got bound over to circuit court. She's working with you on that case. She's going to continue to talk to the prosecuting attorney on resolving that matter. But with you pleading guilty to this today, I'm not going to sentence you today. I need to get a little bit more information from the Target people in a little bit more detail about what happened with the product and that kind of thing before I finalize it. But I can't let you out of jail today.
Okay.
You're being held on that other case. You get that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Your Honor,
But,
this is bond on this case. I do want him to get whatever credit he has.
okay. The bond on the current case that we're involved in right now, is a 5,000 personal recognizance. So there's not, this case is not holding him.
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as he gets credit for the time, if you don't want to, if you're.
I don't have a problem with that. We can talk about it when we sentence on this. All right, so Mr. Gordon, I accept your plea of guilty on the misdemeanor. You're going to be talking with us later. We'll set it up and we'll be with Ms. Foster so we can all talk about it, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do you have family, Mr. Gordon? Any
I
kids of your own?
I have one on the way in about a month.
And then you still have contact with your mom and dad?
Yeah, I did, but it's not going so well, so not
It's
really.
not good right now.
Yeah, really.
The baby's mother, do you have contact with her?
Yes.
It's got to be hard for everybody when you're locked up like this.
Yeah.
It's got to be hard for everybody. You got to think about what's going on and how to get yourself on track. I don't know you, Mr. Gordon, but I'm sure you're smarter than how you've been acting. Because your actions are what are causing you to be locked up. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
All right, we'll talk more when I see you later. Thank you for being part of this Zoom today, Mr. Gordon. Okay, deputies, we're ready with Mr. Anderson if he's there.
Yes.
I think
I'll get to
Mr. Stabler's there.
Yep. And Mr. Stabler, I see you on file D20 02426. You're represented by Mr. Pebley, and your case today is set for what they call a probable cause conference on a retail fraud first-degree 5-year felony from the Cascade Mire. Mr. Pebley, you've talked with Ms. Bartlett on this case briefly. Know that the offer is as charged, no subs.
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you had a chance to talk to Mr. Stabler much?
Yes, I believe he's going to waive. He has another case pending
Okay.
that was just waived. So he'll waive
You're
to
going to
keep
kind
that
of
offer open.
negotiate, and you're going to keep that offer open, but continue to negotiate with the others.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Stabler, am I saying your last name correctly, Stabler? You got to unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I hear you. So, Mr. Stabler, if you're
Okay.
waiving your preliminary exam today, there's no testimony taken. The case moves on to circuit court. Circuit court is the next higher court downtown. And then today we just say
Yes, ma'am.
not guilty. We say not guilty on the charged offense. And if you give Mr. Pebley the authority to sign 2 documents, one is waiving the preliminary exam and what I just talked about, and one is waiving the circuit court arraignment, where you don't appear in front of the circuit judge to say not guilty. They let me say not guilty on your behalf. Are you with me on that, Mr. Stabler?
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions that pop out for you?
Pardon me?
Do you have any questions that are popping out for you, or are you pretty much good?
I'm good.
Okay, so just stay in contact with Mr. Pebley, and you give him authority to sign those 2 documents, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stabler. We'll send the paperwork to you, Mr. Pebley. Get that back to us today, Mr. Pebley.
Yes, we will.
All right. And Mr. Stabler, you stay in contact with Mr. Pebley so you know when your next appointment is going to be at circuit court.
Yes.
Okay, all set. You can disconnect. Thanks for your courtesy, Mr. Stabler.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yep. Mr. Anderson, can you hear me at the jail? Mr. Camillo Anderson, I'm Judge Sara Smolenski. We've got your file D20-01628. They refer to it as home invasion, 2nd degree. That's a 15-year felony, Mr. Anderson, where they've indicated that if you decide to waive your preliminary exam, they'll continue negotiations regarding the sentencing with this case and any other cases you have and the co-defendants. So home invasion, 2nd degree would move on to circuit court. No testimony taken today. Do you understand, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I have a question now.
Yes?
If I had, changed my, plea, would that still be sentenced to me?
Well, there's no plea right now. You haven't made any final decision on a plea. If you change your mind and decide differently, once the case gets to circuit court, you and your attorney, Mr. Pebley, would be talking to the prosecutor about what all the options are available, you know, and what the sentence might be. I mean, of course, they're going to want to talk about that.
So
But if you waive today, your case moves on to circuit court with continued negotiations and continued opportunity for offers being made. Then ultimately you have to decide in the end with your attorney to get advice, what's the best approach. If you waive today, there's no testimony in front of me, and the case moves on to circuit. If you waive your circuit court arraignment, that just means you don't go in front of the circuit judge. It allows me to say not guilty on your behalf. But your case moves on to circuit court. That's where the negotiations continue. Do you understand that?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's what you've talked with Mr. Pebley about, right, Mr. Pebley?
Yes, we talked about the next step will be the status conference, which is where we'll talk to the prosecutor about the sentence and any further negotiations.
Sure. All right, so Mr. Anderson, if you give Mr. Pebley authority, there's 2 documents he's going to sign on your behalf. One is the waiver of the preliminary exam. Like I said, there won't be any testimony today. The case moves on. Second, the waiver of the circuit court arraignment that allows me to say not guilty and you don't go in front of the circuit judge. There will be a new date. As Mr. Pebley said, it's called a status conference. And you guys will negotiate further at that point, more of the details that you're talking about regarding what the sentence might look like, if you pled. You don't do that today. Do you get that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Pebley?
No, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Pebley will be in contact with you. If you have questions that come up, that's who you want to talk to. Today, we waived the preliminary exam and waived the circuit court arraignment. We'll send those documents to you, Mr. Pebley. We'd like those back today.
Yes, I'll get them back. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Before we go, hey, Don,
Just a second. Hold on. What's your question?
Mr. Pebbly?
Yeah.
It's not a question, it's a statement. Happy birthday, Don.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Happy birthday, Don.
We didn't know it was your birthday. Okay, thank you. Mr. Anderson, we're through. Thank you.
What about dump
Okay.
today?
Mr. Misko, come on up to the podium. We'll be with you in a minute, Ms. Guerrero. So, Ms. Foster, you're talking with Mr. Misko about this case that was a felony 2-count charge where they're offering 1 misdemeanor of larceny over 200, under 1,000 with restitution. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Misko, the misdemeanor charge, over 200 larceny, under 1,000 with full restitution. Full restitution means paying back anything that was stolen or damaged or destroyed. Larceny, over 200, under 1,000 is a misdemeanor, stays in the district court, up to 1 year in jail, possible, up to $2,000 fine, or 3 times the value of the property stolen, whichever is greater. You can plead guilty or not guilty, have a trial in front of a judge or a jury, have an attorney represent you. If you cannot afford an attorney, the court can appoint one for you. Then you pay the expense of a court-appointed attorney. Ms. Foster is here and more than capable of representing you on this case, so that if you go forward, the decision has to be yours in terms of how you make your decision. Are you on probation or parole right now anywhere? Do you have any cases that are pending in any other courts right now, Mr. Misko? Paragraph 11 talks about your right to appeal. You have 21 days from the date of sentencing to appeal a case to the higher court. Any questions about that? No. I need you to sign that, date it today's date. Mr. Liss, are you going to need to talk to Ms. Guerrero at all separately before we start?
No, Your Honor, we've been in contact.
Okay, fine. I just want to make sure. I'll be right with you. So, Mr. Misko, when we're going back to March 12, already 7 months ago, practically 7 months ago, to that charge called larceny over 200, under 1,000, how do you wish to plead? Are you pleading guilty by your own decision? Has anybody forced or threatened you in any way to plead to this right now? No. When you say guilty, is it because you did something wrong? Yes. What was it that you did at that 76th Street truck stop? Date, March 12, this year. Cash. Cash out of a cash register? No. Cash out of somebody's truck?
No, it was,
cash that was where?
I don't even know what you call it, like a filing thing that you put on the wall.
So they had some kind of a dispenser that's on the wall and it had cash in it?
No, no dispenser. It was kind of like one of these.
Yeah, you put file and papers in it?
Yeah, it was just.
Okay, so a container that's part of the 76th Street truck stop? Do you work there?
I did, yes.
So you worked there at the time and you took cash out of an area that was not yours?
Yes.
And it was cash that was meant to be for what?
I don't know. Man.
What's the cash for? Was it paying for stuff?
Oh, for me?
No, why would cash be in some file container?
If I may, Your Honor, this truck stop has a weird, they don't have a safe or anything. That was basically where they were putting their
So it was like their cash register. It was like their cash drawer.
it was like their daily till, Your Honor.
Okay. So in that, you took out cash, Mr. Misko, while you were working there, correct? Yes. And how much was it that you took? Ballpark. Couple $100? $1,000?
I don't know, less than 1,000.
Uh-huh. And was it in $20 bills, 50s, hundreds, what?
All different. It was
Over a period of how many times do you think you did it?
once.
How long did you work there?
I've been there for 3 years.
3 years you worked there, and then March of this year, you reached in and took cash out of a container that they use for their cash drawer. And you did it with a whole chunk of money, and it would have been in the ballpark of $1,000. Why?
At the time, Your Honor, didn't have no place to live, and I was working there. I was living under the bridges during the winter, and
Uh-huh.
I don't know, I guess
You're desperate for money to stay somewhere. You were homeless in essence. So you don't go to your boss and ask for any help. You decide to steal from your employer.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And technically, do you think of yourself as a thief?
No,
Normally, do you steal from people?
no.
If you're sitting on a bus and the lady next to you, an old lady, has her purse, do you reach in and take her wallet?
No, ma'am.
I mean, seriously, do you think of yourself as a thief?
No, I don't. I really don't.
Well, I get that people can get desperate. And I'm not going to pretend I know what it's like to sleep under the bridge. Never have done it. Fortunate to never have to. But that doesn't turn you into a thief. There are places you could go and ask for help if you're homeless or have no food or need medical help, as opposed to turning into a thief. Are you with me? Do you have kids?
Yes.
How many?
4.
How old are they? From what to what?
16 to a year old.
Do you see them?
Yes.
Do you live with them?
I live with 2 of them right now. I just got my house back and got 2 of them with me.
Okay. I'll ask you, Ms. Foster, whether you believe the court has complied with the court rule in terms of the taking of the plea.
Yes, Your Honor.
So I'll accept the plea of larceny over 200, under 1,000. I'll accept that plea of guilty. I'm going to set this up for sentencing. I want to get restitution information from the 76th Street truck stop. I can't imagine all the people you worked with for 3 years, people you worked with at the truck stop, and they trusted you.
Well, I worked diner. It's
Yeah.
a diner and a gas station.
Is it right by it?
I was working both places.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they trusted you, Mr. Misko. And I don't know who the head guys are at 76th Street truck stop or the diner, but they trusted you. And then you turned on them. That's what this feels like to them. I've never talked to them, so I don't know what they'll say, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's the feeling. Betrayal. Betrayal. If everybody was just saying money's free, it'd just be free, take it. That's not the way it works, and you know it. We'll get a date set up for sentencing. You and your attorney can stop downstairs. They'll process it and talk about it. Get a date that works for both of you, okay? All right. Elizabeth Guerrero, thank you for being available through our Zoom with your attorney, Mr. Liss, on file D16, meaning it goes back to the year 2016, 04405, when you got charged with these drug offenses. There's been a lot of discussion. Your attorney, Mr. Liss, has talked to a lot of the prosecutors about it, including Ms. Bartlett. There's been discussion about continuing all the negotiations regarding your case, your cases, and the charges against the Scott Diepenhorst, that there'd be continued discussions and perhaps cooperation with any prosecution against that other co-defendant. Now, what's your discussion at this point, Mr. Liss?
Your Honor, we have had numerous discussions, and Ms. Bartlett even went to the trouble of calling the former vice officer. And based on all of our discussions, our new offer is plead guilty to possession of meth, which is a 10-year felony, with no objection to 7411, and dismiss the remainder. Did I state that right, Ms. Bartlett?
You did, Your Honor. Yeah, or you did, Ed. Your Honor, I sent over a new offer sheet a little bit later because I was able to contact the detective on the case and
Sure.
make a better offer.
So right now, it's a 110-year, both 20 years being dismissed and 7411 being available.
Correct.
So this would be a waiver, Ms. Guerrero, to the circuit court to preserve the offer that Mr. Liss has been working on, where 2 20-year felonies would be dismissed if you pled to 1 10-year felony under the deferment program 7411. If you waive your prelim today, the offer continues to circuit court, and quite frankly, there'll probably be even more discussions, but then ultimately you make your decision. If you waive today, there's no testimony taken in front of me, and you waive your circuit court arraignment waiver, meaning the circuit court arraignment waiver means you don't go in front of the circuit judge to be arraigned. We just say not guilty on the charges. So far, do you feel like you understand that, Ms. Guerrero? Did we lose her?
It says connecting to audio where her name is, but her face has disappeared as well.
Okay, let me see if we can get her to connect again. Have you brought her into our room?
Yeah, she's in the room.
Ms. Guerrero, can you hear me? I wonder how far back, I didn't look up to see she was gone. I wonder how far back I have to go with what I said. Mr. Liss, when you're looking at her paperwork, can you text Amanda her telephone number or email it over? Now she's hooking up. Ms. Guerrero, we lost you for a minute. Can you speak? Ms. Guerrero, can you hear me? You have to push the button that says join audio. Unmute. Mr. Liss, if you'd email Amanda that telephone number.
Yes, Your Honor.
I just got my audio working. I apologize.
Okay, now we hear you, Ms. Guerrero. We lost you for a while, both visually and audibly. Now you're connected fully. Do you hear me?
I do hear you. I apologize.
No, that's all right. We knew you were, I was trying to get the telephone number so I could call you, but I didn't want him to say it on the Zoom because we're live streaming this and I didn't want your number to go over the live stream. But anyways, I'm glad you're connected. I don't know how much you heard me before waiving this preliminary exam. The 2 20-year felonies are going to be dismissed if at some point you decide to plead to a 10-year felony of possession of methamphetamine with the first time offender program being available, where a drug charge is put on you're put on probation, and if you follow your probation successfully, then it's not on your record permanently. You don't lose your driving privileges. If you waive today, Ms. Guerrero, there's no testimony in front of me. The case moves on to circuit court, and you and Mr. Liss will continue to talk about the case and discuss it at circuit court when you'll ultimately have to make your decision of whether you're going to take the plea offer. Do you understand what I'm talking about so far?
Yes, I do.
Are you currently now on probation or parole?
I meet with court services once a month, but I'm on
And that's
bond.
good on this case, but you're not on probation or parole anywhere. Okay.
No.
So this is what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to stay in contact with Mr. Liss, because the next appointment will be at circuit court called the status conference. You won't be in district court anymore, but it's possible it would be done by Zoom at circuit court, but Mr. Liss will fill you in. I send 2 documents to Mr. Liss. One is called the waiver of the prelim. One is the waiver of the circuit court arraignment. If you give him authority, Ms. Guerrero, on those 2 documents, he'll sign those 2 documents on your behalf, and the case moves on to circuit court as we've discussed. Understood?
Yes.
And you agree?
Yes.
And you give him authority to sign those?
Yes.
So Mr. Liss, when you get those 2 documents, sign them on behalf of Ms. Guerrero, send them back to us today.
Will, Your Honor. Any ideas what time those will be sent over to my office?
Amanda? Do you know when you'll be sending them to Mr. Liss?
More than likely after lunch hour.
Within the next hour and a half.
Sounds good. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Guerrero, stay in contact with Mr. Liss, but you're through with us today. Thanks for working hard to hook up on the Zoom.
Thank you.
Okay, peace to you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Matthew Long, can you hear me okay at the jail?
Yes.
Mr. Long, I believe your attorney is Mr. Donald Pebley, part of this Zoom today. Mr. Pebley, is this one of your cases?
It is, Your Honor.
All right. And Mr. Long, I'm Judge Sara Smolenski on your file D20 02425FY. You were charged with 2 separate counts of criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree. So 2 separate 15-year felonies, Mr. Long. Today is scheduled for what's referred to as the probable cause conference. You and your attorney talk about the case. Your attorney talks with the prosecutor about the case. Right now, Ms. Bartlett on this case has given information to Mr. Pebley that if you pled as charged, they would reserve the right to add any additional counts of criminal sexual conduct in either the second degree, third degree, or first degree. So right now, it doesn't sound like there's really any offers being made other than as charged. Is that your understanding, Ms. Bartlett?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, and Mr. Pebley, have you had a chance to talk to Mr. Long much?
I have, but not about the offer.
Okay. Well, so do you want to be in a separate room right now, or do you want to put this over till next week?
No, I'd like to talk to him now.
All right,
Because he plans on waiving the preliminary exam when we talked. So
okay, that's fine. Why
I
don't
don't
we
think-
just put you guys in a separate breakout room for 5 minutes or so, and then I'll have you come on back in.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much. Is anybody in the room? Okay, what's Dubus's first name? Ms. Bartlett, do you know anything about the Javon Brown case?
No.
Okay.
Is that on the schedule this morning?
Yeah, it's set for 10:15. The defense attorney is Lindsay Dubus.
Is it a PCC or a prelim?
It's a prelim. Although, to be honest with you, I don't have the file, so maybe they took it off and we don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
Javan, Javan, Brown. I bet it was, because I don't have the file, so that would make sense. And then the last two that we have are Sell and Staub.
Right. Do you show an attorney for Miss Sell?
Let me see if I do. Nope, she got denied.
Okay.
It's set at 11, I think, so we'll see if she zooms in. I'll have to tell her we need to get her a court-appointed attorney.